Morning light filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, painting the penthouse in shades of gold and amber. Laura sat curled in the corner of the couch, her hands wrapped around her third cup of coffee, while Jin Hyuk occupied the opposite end, close enough to talk, far enough to breathe. The distance between them felt both necessary and unbearable. "We need rules," Laura said finally, breaking the silence that had stretched since breakfast. "Real ones, not the kind you make up and I pretend to follow." Jin Hyuk nodded slowly, his expression serious. "I'm listening." She took a breath, steeling herself. "I need my own space. Not just a room in your penthouse, but actual space that's mine. Where you don't just walk in whenever you want, where I can close the door and know you'll respect that boundary." "Done." His response was immediate. "Your room has a lock. I'll give you the only key." "I want to work," she continued, gaining confidence. "Not for you. Somewhere else. Somewhere that's mine. Where I'm building something that doesn't depend on your money or your connections or your protection." Jin Hyuk's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, but he nodded. "As long as you're safe. As long as the place checks out and treats you well." "That's the thing, though." Laura leaned forward, her eyes intense. "You don't get to vet my choices like I'm incapable of making good decisions. You can offer advice, you can share concerns, but you can't control where I work or who I work for or make decisions for me just because you think you know better." The muscle in his jaw jumped, and Laura watched him struggle with the request. This was his nature. Control everything, trust nothing, protect at all costs. Asking him to let go was like asking him to stop breathing. "What if I see danger you don't see?" His voice was strained. "What if my instincts tell me something's wrong? Then you tell me. You present your concerns like I'm an adult, capable of processing information and making informed decisions. But ultimately, it has to be my choice. Even if you disagree, even if it scares you." Jin Hyuk stood abruptly, pacing to the windows, his hands fisted at his sides, and Laura could see the tension radiating through his frame. "Do you have any idea how hard that is for me? The thought of you walking into danger while I stand back and do nothing?" "I do, actually," Laura's voice softened. "Because that's how I feel every day about you. You walk into rooms with men who'd kill you for the right price. You make decisions that could get you arrested or murdered, and I have to sit here and trust that you know what you're doing, that you'll come home safe. That's what you're asking me to do. Trust you. I'm asking for the same in return." He turned to face her, and the raw vulnerability in his expression stole her breath. "What if I fail you? What if something happens because I respected your choice instead of acting on my instincts? Then we deal with it together." But Jin Hyuk, she stood, closing the distance between them, but stopping just short of touching. "Every person who's controlled my life claimed they were protecting me. My foster parents who locked me in my room said it was for my safety. My ex who monitored my phone said he was keeping me from danger. Control disguised as care is still control. I can't live like that again. I won't." The words hit him like physical blows. She watched him process them, watched understanding dawn in his dark eyes. "I'm not them," he said finally, his voice rough. "I don't want to be them. I know. That's why I'm here, having this conversation instead of running. Because I believe you can learn the difference between protecting me and controlling me. But you have to actually do it, not just promise it." Jin Hyuk reached for her hand, his touch tentative. "I need something too. Communication. If you're going somewhere, if you're meeting someone, if something feels wrong, I need you to tell me. Not because I don't trust you, but because in my world, information is survival. The thought of something happening to you while I'm in the dark," he shook his head. "I can't live with that." Laura considered this, recognizing the compromise. "Okay, I can do that. But it goes both ways. You don't shut me out of your life. Don't disappear into your office for days handling dangerous situations without telling me what's happening. If we're doing this, really doing this, I need to know what I'm a part of. Even the ugly parts? Especially the ugly parts. I'm not choosing the sanitized version of you, Jin Hyuk. I'm choosing all of it, the violence, the danger, the moral ambiguity. But I need to make that choice with full information, not with you curating what I get to know." They stood facing each other, hands joined, both breathing hard from the intensity of the negotiation. This wasn't romance. It was raw, honest, and sometimes painful. It was two traumatized people trying to build something healthy from broken pieces. "What are we doing?" Laura asked finally, her voice barely above a whisper. Jin Hyuk's thumb traced circles on her palm, the gesture achingly tender. "Learning to trust together. Learning that needing someone doesn't mean losing yourself, that two people can be whole on their own and still choose to be together. It's going to be hard. Yes. We're going to make mistakes. Probably daily. I might run again when it gets too intense, and I'll let you. Then I'll be here when you come back." His free hand came up to cup her face, his touch gentle despite the calluses. "But Laura, I need you to promise me something too. When you run, when the fear gets too loud, give me a chance to make it right before you disappear completely. One conversation, one chance to hear what I did wrong and try to fix it." She leaned into his palm, feeling the warmth of his skin against her cheek. "I can promise that. If you promise to actually listen when I tell you you've crossed a line. Deal." They stood there as Seoul hummed with life beyond the windows, hands joined and hearts tentatively open, both terrified but willing to try. It wasn't perfect, it was barely even stable, but it was honest, and for two people who'd survived by hiding their truths, honesty felt like revolution. "Okay," Laura said finally, a small smile touching her lips. "Let's try this. Together." Jin Hyuk's answering smile was beautiful in its vulnerability. "Together," he echoed and pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was both precious and strong, exactly what she needed to be. The doorbell rang at precisely 2 o'clock that afternoon, shattering the fragile peace Laura and Jin Hyuk had constructed over lunch. They'd been in the kitchen, Jin Hyuk attempting to cook while Laura supervised with barely concealed amusement, when the sound cut through their laughter. Jin Hyuk's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The relaxed man who'd been joking about his terrible knife skills vanished, replaced by the dangerous predator Laura had seen glimpses of. His hand moved instinctively toward his waist before he caught himself. "Stay here," he said quietly, already moving toward the foyer. "Jin Hyuk, please." The word stopped her, not a command, but a genuine request born from concern. "Just until I know who it is." Laura watched from the kitchen doorway as he checked the security feed, saw his entire body go rigid. When he spoke, his voice was ice. "It's David Chen." Her stomach dropped. She'd completely forgotten about David in the chaos of the past 24 hours, forgotten that she'd given him her number, forgotten the dinner invitation she'd accepted out of spite and desperation. "I'll send him away," Jin Hyuk said, his hand on the door handle. "No." Laura moved forward, her heart hammering. "I should talk to him. I owe him that much." The look Jin Hyuk gave her was pure anguish, but he stepped aside. When he opened the door, David stood in the hallway with a bouquet of flowers and concern written across his handsome features. "Laura," relief flooded his expression when he saw her. "Thank God. I've been calling for 3 days. When you didn't show up for dinner and then didn't answer your phone, I thought—" He stopped, taking in the domestic scene, Laura in comfortable clothes with damp hair, Jin Hyuk standing possessively close. Understanding dawned slowly. "I see. David, I'm sorry." Laura moved forward, hating the hurt in his eyes. "I should have called. Things have been complicated." Complicated. David's gaze shifted to Jin Hyuk, and the temperature in the room dropped several degrees. "Is this why you disappeared? Did he threaten you? Because if he's forcing you to be here—" "No one's forcing anyone to do anything." Jin Hyuk's voice was dangerously quiet. "Laura is here by choice, her choice." "Is she?" David stepped into the penthouse uninvited, his corporate Polish giving way to genuine anger. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like a powerful man has isolated a vulnerable woman in his home. That's called coercion, Jin Hyuk." Jin Hyuk moved between David and Laura with predatory grace, his body language screaming threat. "You need to leave, now." "Not until I hear from Laura that she actually wants to be here." David's eyes found hers over Jin Hyuk's shoulder. "Laura, you told me you wanted independence. You said you were looking for work to get away from this life. What changed?" The question was fair, painfully so. Laura could see both men watching her, David with concern and confusion, Jin Hyuk with barely controlled fear that she might actually leave with David, might choose the safe, normal option over the complicated, dangerous reality of staying. "Everything changed," Laura said finally, stepping around Jin Hyuk to face David directly. And nothing changed. I'm still terrified. I'm still not sure this is the right choice, but it's my choice, David, mine. He's a criminal. David's voice dropped, urgent. I've done my research since we met. Jin Hyuk isn't just some businessman with questionable connections. He's deep in organized crime. People around him disappear. He's dangerous, Laura. I know what he is. Do you? David took a step closer, his expression almost pleading. Do you know about the protection rackets, the money laundering, the violence? Because I can show you documentation, police reports, testimony from— Stop. Laura held up a hand, her voice firm. I appreciate your concern. I do. You've been nothing but kind to me, and you didn't have to be. But I'm not an idiot, David. I know exactly who Jin Hyuk is and what his world involves. I'm choosing to stay anyway. Why? The question was genuinely baffled. I'm offering you a way out. I can help you get a job, find an apartment, start over somewhere safe. You don't have to do this. Laura glanced back at Jin Hyuk, saw him standing rigidly still, every muscle tensed as he waited for her answer. She could see the fear in his eyes, the terror that she might actually walk away, that David's logical arguments might override whatever fragile connection they'd built. Because I'm tired of running, she said softly, turning back to David. Because safe isn't always the same as right. Because Jin Hyuk sees me, really sees me, in a way no one else ever has. And because for the first time in my life, I'm choosing something that scares me instead of just surviving. David's expression crumbled slightly. He could hurt you. So could you. So could anyone. Laura managed a sad smile. The restaurant manager who seemed so nice hurt me. The foster families who promised safety hurt me. The boyfriend who claimed to love me hurt me. At least with Jin Hyuk, I know what I'm walking into. At least he's honest about who he is. Is he, though? David's gaze shifted to Jin Hyuk with open challenge. Are you honest with her about everything? The innocent people who get caught in your world's crossfire? Jin Hyuk's voice, when he spoke, was deadly calm. I've told her more truth than I've told anyone in my life, but you're right. My world is violent. It's ugly. People get hurt. That's why I'm giving her the choice to leave anytime she wants. No strings, no consequences, just her decision. And you expect me to believe that? David laughed bitterly. Men like you don't let go of things they want. You don't know anything about men like me. Jin Hyuk took a step forward, and Laura quickly moved between them. But you're right about one thing. I want her. More than I've wanted anything in my life, which is exactly why I'll let her go if that's what she needs. The two men faced each other over Laura's head, both bristling with tension, both convinced they were right. Laura felt the weight of their attention, felt the impossible position of being fought over by two men who couldn't be more different. David, she touched his arm gently, drawing his focus back to her. Thank you. For caring, for offering me help, for being concerned enough to come here. But I'm asking you to respect my choice, even if you don't understand it. David looked at her for a long moment, searching her face for signs of coercion, of fear, of anything that would justify intervening. Whatever he saw, there must have convinced him, because his shoulders finally slumped in defeat. If you break her, he said quietly, turning to Jin Hyuk with steel in his voice, if you use her or hurt her or make her regret choosing you, you'll answer to me. I don't care how many guns you have or how many men you command, you'll answer to me. Jin Hyuk's expression was unreadable. Noted. David nodded once, then turned back to Laura. Keep my number. If you ever need anything at all, you call me. Promise me. I promise. He handed her the flowers he'd been holding, their bright colors absurdly cheerful given the tension crackling through the room. Then he left, the door closing behind him with quiet finality. The silence that followed was deafening. Laura set the flowers on the entry table and turned to find Jin Hyuk watching her with an expression of wonder and disbelief. You chose me, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. Laura crossed to him, placing her hands on his chest, feeling his heart hammering beneath her palms. I chose us, she corrected gently. I chose to try, to see if two broken people can figure out how to be whole together. Don't make me regret it. Jin Hyuk's arms came around her, pulling her close with a desperation that spoke of how terrified he'd been of losing her. I won't, he murmured into her hair. I swear to you, Laura, I won't. The Korean lessons started 3 days after David's departure, born from frustration when Laura couldn't read the label on a bottle of cleaning solution and nearly mixed chemicals that would have been disastrous. "That's it," Jin Hyuk had declared, pulling her to the kitchen table with a notebook and pen. "You're learning to read Korean. It's dangerous not to." "I know survival Korean," Laura protested, but she sat anyway, drawn by the intensity in his eyes that had nothing to do with safety and everything to do with wanting to share his world with her. Now, 2 weeks later, they had a routine. Every morning after coffee, Jin Hyuk would quiz her on vocabulary while preparing breakfast. His hands would guide hers through the stroke order of characters, his chest pressed against her back, his breath warm against her neck as he corrected her pronunciation. "Saranghae," he murmured one morning, his fingers wrapped around hers on the pen. "Do you know what that means?" Laura's heart stuttered. She knew. She'd looked it up days ago when she'd caught him whispering it in his sleep. "I love you." Good. His lips brushed her temple, and she felt him smile. "You're learning." They cooked together most evenings, Jin Hyuk teaching her to make bulgogi and kimchi jjigae, while she introduced him to Chicago deep dish pizza and her grandmother's cornbread recipe. The kitchen became their sanctuary, a space where they could be close without the weight of their pasts pressing down on them. "Your grandmother taught you this?" Jin Hyuk asked one night, watching her knead dough with practiced efficiency. "Only good memory I have from before foster care," Laura's hands stilled momentarily. "She died when I was 6. After that, everything fell apart." Jin Hyuk moved behind her, his hands covering hers, resuming the kneading rhythm. "Tell me about her." So she did. Haltingly at first, then with increasing ease, Laura shared stories she'd buried for years. Her grandmother's laugh, her garden, the way she'd hum gospel songs while cooking. Jin Hyuk listened without interruption, his presence steady and grounding, occasionally pressing kisses to her shoulder when the memories became too heavy. Music became their second language. Laura introduced him to Nina Simone and Etta James, blues and jazz that spoke of survival and heartbreak. She'd catch him humming Feeling Good while working in his study, and it made something warm bloom in her chest. In return, Jin Hyuk played her Korean ballads and traditional music, explaining the stories behind each song. One night, he found her crying while listening to a particular song about lost mothers, and he'd simply held her, letting her tears soak his shirt without demanding explanation. But it wasn't all soft moments and gentle discovery. They argued constantly, fierce, passionate arguments that left them both breathing hard and frustrated. "You can't vet everyone I talk to," Laura shouted one afternoon when she discovered Jin Hyuk had run a background check on a potential employer. "I can when the man has 3 sexual harassment complaints filed against him," Jin Hyuk fired back, his accent thickening with anger. "Would you rather I let you walk into that situation blind? I'd rather you trust me to handle my own life. I do trust you. I don't trust the world not to hurt you." They'd stood glaring at each other across the living room, both refusing to back down, until Laura had started laughing at the absurdity of it all. "We're insane. You know that, right?" Jin Hyuk's lips had twitched. Completely. Then he'd crossed to her, pulled her into his arms, and they'd fallen onto the couch in a tangle of limbs and breathless laughter, the argument forgotten. Other fights ended differently, with Jin Hyuk pressing her against the kitchen counter, his mouth on hers, swallowing her protests until she was kissing him back with equal fervor. With Laura straddling him on the couch, her hands fisted in his hair, both of them trembling with want they hadn't yet acted on. They were building something, brick by careful brick, learning each other's boundaries and triggers, discovering what made the other smile or retreat. 3 weeks into their tentative relationship, Jin Hyuk came home from a meeting with tension radiating from every line of his body. "What's wrong?" Laura asked from her position curled on the couch. He poured himself whiskey, downed it in one swallow, poured another. "My mother is coming to Seoul next week." "That's good?" "She's bringing marriage prospects." The words came out bitter. 3 daughters from appropriate families, women who understand our world, who won't flinch at what I do, who... He stopped, his knuckles white around the glass. Laura's stomach dropped. "Oh." Jin Hyuk turned to face her, his expression tortured. "I'll refuse them all. I'll make it clear that I'm not interested. I just needed you to know it's happening." "Your mother wants you to marry someone from your world." Laura pulled her knees to her chest, suddenly cold. Someone appropriate, someone who's not, don't. Jin Hyuk crossed to her in 3 strides, kneeling before the couch so they were eye level. Don't finish that sentence. I'm not what she'll want for you, Laura whispered, hating the insecurity in her voice. I'm not Korean. I'm not from your world. I'm just your former maid, Jin Hyuk. What are you going to tell her? That you're involved with the help? I'm going to tell her I'm in love with you. His hands cupped her face, forcing her to meet his eyes. I'm going to tell her that you're brilliant and strong, and that you make me want to be better than I am, that you challenge me and frustrate me and make me feel alive in a way nothing else ever has. She won't accept it. I don't care. His thumbs stroked her cheekbones, his gaze fierce. You're what I want, Laura. That's all that matters. Not her approval, not tradition, not appropriate family connections. You. Laura felt tears spill over, hating herself for the vulnerability, for needing his reassurance. I'm scared. So am I. Jin Hyuk pressed his forehead to hers. But we'll face it together. That's what we promised, remember? Together. She kissed him then, soft and desperate and full of unspoken fears. Jin Hyuk kissed her back like she was oxygen, like he was drowning and she was air, his hands gentle despite the intensity of his emotions. When they finally broke apart, Laura managed a shaky smile. Your mother is going to hate me. Probably. Jin Hyuk smiled back, equally shaky. But she'll have to get in line behind everyone else who thinks this is a terrible idea. They laughed, the sound watery but genuine, holding each other as night fell over Seoul, both knowing the real test of their fragile relationship was coming, both hoping they were strong enough to survive it. Mrs. Choi arrived on a Tuesday morning in a chauffeured Mercedes, dressed in Chanel and carrying disapproval like a designer handbag. Laura watched from the kitchen as Jin Hyuk greeted his mother in the foyer, his posture rigid with tension she'd never seen before. Iyama, he said, bowing respectfully. Mrs. Choi's sharp eyes swept the penthouse, cataloging everything, missing nothing. When her gaze landed on Laura hovering in the doorway, those eyes turned glacial. Who is this? Her Korean was clipped, precise. This is Laura. Jin Hyuk switched to English, a deliberate choice. Laura, my mother, Mrs. Choi. Laura bowed, her beginner's Korean carefully prepared. 안녕하세요. 만나세요 반갑습니다. Mrs. Choi's expression didn't soften. She responded in rapid Korean that Laura couldn't follow, then switched to English. You are the housekeeper my son mentioned. Not a question. An accusation. I was, Laura said carefully. Now she's staying with me, Jin Hyuk interrupted, his hand finding Laura's waist. The gesture was possessive, protective, and unmistakably claiming. As my guest. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. Dinner that evening was excruciating. Jin Hyuk's younger sister Min-ji had arrived with their mother, a beautiful 24-year-old who worked in fashion and seemed genuinely curious about Laura rather than hostile. So you're American? Min-ji asked in perfect English as they sat around the dining table. What brought you to Seoul? A fresh start, Laura answered diplomatically, acutely aware of Mrs. Choi's disapproving stare across the table. From what exactly? Mrs. Choi's question was pointed. What is a young American woman running from that she ends up cleaning houses in a foreign country? Iyama, Jin Hyuk warned. It's a fair question. Mrs. Choi dabbed her mouth with her napkin. If this woman is important to you, I should know her background, her family, her education, her intentions. Laura felt her cheeks burn. Her intentions are none of your concern, Jin Hyuk said quietly, but there was steel beneath the words, and her past is hers to share if and when she chooses. Mrs. Choi set down her chopsticks with deliberate precision. You cannot be serious about this, Jin Hyuk. She's not Korean. She's not from our world. She has no family connections, no understanding of what your life requires. The women I've brought for you to meet. I'm not meeting them. Jin Hyuk's hand found Laura's on the table, their fingers interlacing above the white tablecloth. The gesture was deliberate, public, unmistakable. I'm not interested in arranged meetings or appropriate matches. Minji's eyes went wide. Mrs. Choi looked like she'd been slapped. You would throw away suitable matches, women who understand your responsibilities, who could strengthen our family's position. For a housekeeper? Mrs. Choi's voice rose slightly, the only crack in her composure. I would choose the woman I love over anyone you parade through here, yes. Jin Hyuk's thumb stroked Laura's hand, his gaze never leaving his mother's face. And she's not a housekeeper. She's Laura. She's intelligent and strong, and everything I didn't know I needed. Love. Mrs. Choi spoke the word like a curse. Love is a luxury, Jin Hyuk. You have responsibilities, the family needs. I've built your empire. Jin Hyuk stood abruptly, pulling Laura up with him, his hand still gripping hers. I've expanded operations into 6 new territories. I've tripled our revenue. I've honored our family name and done everything you've ever asked of me. But Juliet is mine. Accept it or don't, but she stays. The use of her middle name, he'd never called her Juliet before, sent shivers down Laura's spine. This was Jin Hyuk in his full power, the man who commanded respect and fear, now using that authority to defend her. Mrs. Choi rose slowly, her expression carved from ice. You're making a mistake. Then it's my mistake to make. Minji stood awkwardly, caught between her mother and brother. Appa, maybe if everyone just calmed down. We're leaving, Mrs. Choi announced. When you come to your senses, Jin Hyuk, you know where to find me. The door closed behind them with quiet finality. Laura stood frozen, trembling, her hand still locked in Jin Hyuk's grip. I should go talk to her. I should explain. No. Jin Hyuk pulled her into his arms. You have nothing to explain. I just cost you your family. Laura's voice cracked. She's your mother, Jin Hyuk. I don't want to come between you and you're not between us. He guided her to the couch, pulling her into his lap, his arms wrapped securely around her waist. You're beside me. There's a difference. Laura buried her face in his neck, breathing him in, trying to stop shaking. She hates me. She doesn't know you. And right now, I don't particularly care if she ever does. His hand stroked her hair, soothing. My mother had been absent from my life. You're the first thing that's chosen me for me. He'll either accept that or she won't. And if she doesn't? Jin Hyuk tilted her face up, his eyes fierce with certainty. Then she doesn't. But you stay. You hear me? Whatever happens with my family, you stay. The screaming woke Jin Hyuk at 2:47 a.m. He was out of bed before his brain fully registered the sound, his hand reaching for the gun in his nightstand drawer on pure instinct. Then he heard it again, not an intruder, but Laura, her voice raw with terror coming from her room down the hall. He found her tangled in sweat-soaked sheets, thrashing against invisible hands, her face contorted in anguish. No, please stop. I'm sorry. Laura. Jin Hyuk approached carefully, remembering what she'd said about sudden movements. You're safe. You're dreaming. Come back to me. Her eyes snapped open, wild and unseeing. When he reached for her, she scrambled backward with a choked sob, her back hitting the headboard. Don't touch me. Please don't. It's Jin Hyuk. He kept his voice low, soothing, holding his hands up where she could see them. It's just me. You're in Seoul. You're safe. No one's going to hurt you. Recognition slowly filtered into her eyes, followed immediately by humiliation. God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to wake you. Don't apologize. He moved to sit on the edge of the bed, still maintaining distance. Can I touch you? She nodded shakily, and he pulled her into his arms, feeling her entire body trembling violently. Her heart hammered against his chest like a trapped bird. He held her through it, one hand stroking her hair, the other rubbing slow circles on her back, murmuring reassurances in a mix of Korean and English. Gwenchana, you're safe. I've got you. Neoneun honjaga anya. You're not alone. The panic attack lasted nearly 20 minutes. Jin Hyuk counted her breaths, helped her slow them down, matched his breathing to hers until the trembling finally subsided. When she could speak again, her voice was small and broken. It was my ex, the one from Chicago. She didn't look at him, couldn't. I dreamed he found me, that he was... Her breath hitched. Jin Hyuk's entire body went rigid with fury. Did he? He couldn't finish the question. No, not like that. Laura pulled back slightly, wrapping her arms around herself. But he would corner me, pin me against walls when he was angry, hold my wrists so tight they'd bruise. He'd scream in my face about how worthless I was, how I should be grateful he put up with me. Once he pushed me down the stairs, claimed I tripped. The rage that coursed through Jin Hyuk was white-hot and murderous, his hands fisted in the sheets to keep from putting them through the wall. Give me his name. Jin Hyuk, his name Laura. His voice was deadly calm. I can have people in Chicago within 12 hours. No, she grabbed his face, forcing him to look at her. That's not what I need from you. I don't need you to hurt him. I just need you to hold me. The simple request nearly broke him. Jin Hyuk pulled her back into his arms, burying his face in her hair. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry that happened to you. It wasn't just him. The words spilled out now, unstoppable. Before him there were foster homes where hands wandered at night, social workers who didn't believe me, a system that moved me every time I complained because it was easier than investigating. I learned that no one was coming to save me, that I had to save myself. Jin Hyuk felt something crack in his chest. You were a child. I was alone. She was crying now, silent tears soaking his shirt. I've been alone my whole life, Jin Hyuk. Even in rooms full of people, I've been alone, learning to need no one, trust no one, rely only on myself. And then you, her voice broke. You make me want things I promised myself I'd never want again. Like what? Safety, partnership, someone to come home to who actually wants me there. She looked up at him, her eyes red and vulnerable. It terrifies me how much I'm starting to need you. Jin Hyuk cupped her face, his thumbs wiping away tears. I can't erase your past. I can't undo what they did to you or take away the nightmares. But I swear on everything I am, Laura, I will make your future safe. I will never give you reason to fear my hands, never make you feel small or worthless or alone. I'm starting to believe you, she whispered, and the wonder in her voice nearly destroyed him. Jin Hyuk shifted them both down into the bed, pulling her against his chest. Sleep. I'll stay right here. Promise? Promise. Laura's breathing eventually evened out, but Jin Hyuk stayed awake until dawn, holding her close, silently vowing that anyone who'd ever hurt her would answer for it eventually. But for now, she just needed him to be gentle. So he was. Laura mentioned it casually over breakfast, not thinking it would be a problem. I'm meeting David for coffee this afternoon. I owe him a proper goodbye. The fork in Jin Hyuk's hand stilled halfway to his mouth. When he looked up, his eyes had gone dark and dangerous. Why? Because he deserves closure. He was kind to me when he didn't have to be, and I disappeared without explanation. Laura kept her voice calm, reasonable. It's the right thing to do. Jin Hyuk set down the fork with careful precision, his jaw clenching so hard she could see the muscle jump. No, that wasn't a request for permission. Laura. He stood abruptly, pacing to the windows, his hands fisting at his sides. She could see him fighting himself, could see the war between his possessive instincts and the promises they'd made about trust and autonomy. Laura moved to stand behind him, her hand gentle on his rigid back. Talk to me. What are you feeling? Like ripping his head off for even thinking about seeing you again. The words came out strained. Like locking you in this penthouse where no other man can look at you. Like, he exhaled harshly, like I'm losing my mind. But you're not going to do any of those things. No. He turned to face her, and the raw vulnerability in his expression made her chest ache. Because I promised to trust you, to respect your choices, even when it kills me. Laura cupped his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. I trust you, he said through clenched teeth, the words clearly costing him. But I don't trust him. He wants you, Laura. He made that clear. Then trust that I choose you. She kissed him softly, feeling him tremble beneath her touch. Every single day, Jin Hyuk, I choose you. David could offer me safety and normalcy and a life without danger, and I'd still choose you. Why? The question was almost desperate. Because you see me. All of me. The broken parts, the scared parts, the parts I've spent years hiding. And you don't run. She pressed her forehead to his. One coffee, one conversation, then I come home. To you. Jin Hyuk's arms came around her, holding tight. 1 hour. If you're not back in 1 hour, I'm coming to get you. Deal. The coffee shop was neutral territory, busy enough for safety, quiet enough for conversation. David was already there when Laura arrived, looking polished and concerned. Thank you for meeting me, Laura said, sliding into the seat across from him. I was surprised you called. David studied her face. You look better, happier even. I am. Laura smiled slightly. I wanted to apologize properly. For disappearing, for not returning your calls. You didn't deserve that. Is he treating you well? Better than I thought possible. David was quiet for a moment, stirring his coffee without drinking. I still think you're making a mistake, but I can see you've made your choice. I have. Laura reached across the table, squeezing his hand briefly. Thank you for caring, for offering help. I hope you find someone who can accept what you're offering. So do I. David managed a rueful smile. For what it's worth, if he breaks your heart, my offer stands. Noted. Laura stood, gathering her bag. Take care, David. 23 minutes. She was back at the penthouse in 23 minutes. Jin Hyuk was waiting at the door when she walked in, as if he'd been standing there the entire time. Before Laura could speak, he had her pressed against the closed door, his mouth on hers in a kiss that was desperate and possessive and claiming. You're early, he growled against her lips. Laura laughed breathlessly. Did you expect me to be late? I expected you to twist me into knots for the full hour. His hands framed her face, his eyes searching hers. Don't test me like that again. Your jealousy is showing, boss. Good. He kissed her again, slower this time, but no less intense. Maybe then other men will know you're taken. Taken, am I? Laura's smile was teasing, but her hands were fisted in his shirt, holding him close. Completely, utterly, irrevocably mine. Jin Hyuk's voice dropped to something possessive and primal. Say it. Yours, Laura whispered against his mouth. Only yours. The sound he made was pure satisfaction. He lifted her easily, her legs wrapping around his waist as he carried her toward his bedroom. Good, because I'm never letting you go. Laura buried her face in his neck, breathing him in, feeling the last piece of her defensive walls crumble. I'm counting on it. 6 weeks had passed since that vulnerable night, and the penthouse had transformed from a pristine showroom into something that felt like home. Laura's textbooks littered the coffee table, her plants lined the windowsills, her laughter echoed through rooms that had been silent for too long. Jin Hyuk had kept his promise. When Laura enrolled at Seoul National University to finish her degree in international relations, he'd celebrated without trying to control which classes she took or who she studied with. When she insisted on working part-time at a bookstore near campus, despite his protests that she didn't need the money, he'd bitten back his concerns and simply asked for the address so he'd know where she was. Learning to let go was killing him, but watching her bloom made it worthwhile. The turning point with his mother came unexpectedly. Mrs. Choi had arrived unannounced one afternoon while Jin Hyuk was at a meeting, finding Laura alone in the penthouse, surrounded by textbooks and notes, muttering Korean vocabulary to herself. You're still here, Mrs. Choi had said, surprise evident in her tone. I'm still here, Laura confirmed, setting down her pen. Would you like tea? They'd talked for 2 hours, really talked. Laura had answered every invasive question with honesty. Her past, her education, her intentions, her understanding of what Jin Hyuk's world demanded. And she'd asked questions in return about Jin Hyuk's childhood, his father's death, the weight Mrs. Choi carried as a widow in their world. When Jin Hyuk came home to find them laughing over photo albums, he'd frozen in the doorway, convinced he was hallucinating. You're Laura, his mother had said later, reverting to Korean so Laura couldn't understand. She's stronger than I thought. She doesn't love you for what you can give her. She loves you despite what you are. A pause. That's rare. Don't lose her. Now, as sunset painted Seoul in shades of gold and amber, Jin Hyuk sat on the balcony with his laptop while Laura studied beside him, their feet intertwined beneath the small table. The evening was warm, the city humming with life below them. Laura looked up from her economics textbook, studying his profile. Do you ever regret choosing someone so difficult? Jin Hyuk immediately set aside his computer, pulling her from her chair into his lap. Never, not for a single moment. I come with nightmares and trust issues and a pathological need for independence. She traced the line of his jaw. I'm not easy to love. You've made me human again, he said quietly, his hands settling on her waist. Before you, I was just surviving, going through motions, building empires, but never actually living. You reminded me what it feels like to care about something more than control. Laura smiled against his neck, breathing him in. And you've made me feel safe for the first time in my life. Really, truly safe. Not because you protect me from everything, but because you give me space to be strong while knowing you're there if I fall. Jin Hyuk tilted her chin up, his gaze intense with possession and tenderness. You are mine, Laura, not as a possession, not as something I control, but mine the way the ocean is mine when I swim in it, vast and powerful and capable of drowning me, but I dive in anyway. And you are mine, she whispered back, my safe harbor, my home, completely. Their kiss was slow and deep, a promise renewed with every touch. Two broken people who'd spent years surviving alone had found something neither expected. Wholeness in each other's damaged pieces, strength in shared vulnerability, home in unexpected arms. Below them, soul glittered with possibility. Above them, stars began to emerge in the darkening sky. And between them, wrapped in each other's arms on a balcony overlooking the city, two hearts beat in synchrony, damaged but healing, guarded but open, finally at peace. Sarangi, Jin Hyuk murmured against her lips. I love you too, Laura whispered back, always. The city stretched endlessly before them, full of danger and beauty and infinite tomorrows. But for now, this moment, this perfect, imperfect moment, was enough. They were enough. Together, they were finally enough.